Namaste everyone. Here we are, one more Friday to get into the 17th episode in this series of talks titled Know the Upanishads. Last time we saw a line from the Kathopanishad, Sa Kashta Sa Paragatihi, and this evening, going by the time in India, or this morning, going by the time in the West, we are taking up a very significant line where a father says to his son, Son, gain the highest wisdom possible in life through one prominent means, one sadhana, and that is tapas. Tapasa Brahma Vijidnasasva. This line comes several times in the third Valli of Taittiriya Upanishad. The Valli is named Bhragu Valli, for Bhragu is the student, possibly or presumably a young man. He goes to his father Varuna and asks for Brahma Vidya. Adihi Bhagavo Brahma iti. Bhragurvai Varuni Varunagam Pitaram Upasasara. That's how the Bhraguvalli begins. And in this amazing story, the father says to Bhragu, you can know Brahma, and the way to get into this anveshana, this search for the highest truth, and all of us know, knowing that highest truth, we come upon ending of all sorrow, ending of fear, ending of all inadequacy, and we come upon supreme happiness. That is the benefit, prayojana of this Brahma Vidya. Adihi Bhagavo Brahmeti Tagam Hovacha Annam Pranam Chakshushrotram Mano Vachamiti. The father says, you must look for Brahma in first of all in your own body. Inquire, this body, is it everything? Is my utmost happiness contained in the body? Is to keep the body happy the way to really come upon lasting happiness? What is the glory and what is the limitation of the physical body? Annam means physical body. Pranam literally means the vital energy, but certain inner energies. Shrotram, Chakshu, the sense organs. By implication, the organs of action too, Karmendriyas. Manaha, Vacham. Vacham, Vak is Karmendriya. Manaha, mind and intellect and so on. All our life, we revolve around bodily comforts, emotional satisfaction, intellectual joys, intellectual pleasures, body, mind, intellect, speech, through so many of human endeavors, in so many walks of life. All we are doing is to seek happiness through Anna, Prana, Mana, Vacham, Chakshu, Shrotram. And how interesting, Varuna, the enlightened father, points out those very six, and by mentioning six, 15 or 20 are implied, those very avenues, those very paths, Shankaracharya calls them Upalabdhi Dwarani. Dwara means gates. You want to enter the Raj Mahal, the palace of Brahma Vidya, here is the gate. To inquire into our physical existence is the gate. It is not the end. You start there. Materialistic people more or less stop there. Eat, drink, make merry is their philosophy. But a spiritual person who eats, who drinks, who makes merry at times, but she or he inquires what is deeper, what is further. Annam pranam chakshushrotram manovachamiti. And with what spirit should I look for Brahma in these physical, emotional, intellectual, or energy bodies? The father says, well, I'll give you a clue. And the clue is ask yourself the question, is this the ultimate? Does everything arise in this? Does everything stay in this? And does everything merge back into this? That's a very famous line of the Upanishads. Yato va imani bhutani jayante, yena jatani jivanti, yat prayanti abhisamvishanti. That is the clue. Based on it, the very second sutra of Brahma Sutras is written by Vedavyasa. After saying Athato Brahma Jitnasa, Vedavyasa gives the second Brahma Sutra out of 555, which is very cryptic. Janmadyasya yataha. And Janmadyasya yataha is nothing but a restatement in a very concise manner what Varuna says in the Bhraguvalli, Yatova imani bhutani jayante. That is Janma. Janma adi asya yataha. By adi, sthiti and laya are meant. Yatova imani jayante, Janma, yena jatani jivanti, being born, living beings stay alive for some length of time. Jivanti. And then at the end, Prayanti, Abhivishanti. Without going too much into this, Janmadhyasya or the famous Veda Vakya, Vedanta Vakya, Yato va imani bhutani jayante, we may say Bhragu takes up an intense inquiry, and that intense inquiry is tapas, our topic in this 17th episode. Interestingly, at the first instance, the father doesn't explicitly say to Bhragu, do tapas for that. Therefore, Shankaracharya in his commentary raises that question. Without being told, why did Bhragu take up tapas? Satapas taptva. It is said, Satapo tapyata. He performed tapas, and after performing some tapas, he hits a dead end, he hits a stone wall, comes back to the father. But who asked him to do tapas? In the beginning, Varuna doesn't use the word tapas. But at the second instance, Varuna explicitly says, Tapasa Brahma Vijitnasasva. My dear son, you started well. You did not start on the wrong spot. You did well, but you need more tapas. You started with tapas, inquired into anna, prana, etc. You inquired with the tip given by me. The ultimate truth has to be something from which everything comes, in which everything stays, into which everything merges back at the end. You did all that. But dear, your journey has just begun in the right direction. Go further. Keep going. Don't stop. Don't get distracted. And tapas essentially is that quality of staying focused on your chosen goal. So Shankaracharya justifies Raghu taking up tapas without being told do tapas, but very soon he is told explicitly, very clearly also. Then reflecting or echoing what was said in the second Valli, Brahmananda Valli, this Raghu Valli also brings the 5 levels of self-discovery. You and I begin with the notion, very immature, childish notion that we are this body. And then we realize, oh no, we need good energy. We need good health. We need to be fit and fine. We need to have vigor. We need to be cheerful throughout the day. Of what use is it if I enjoy a hearty meal, but next 3 hours I lie down with no motivation to do anything? Oops, I don't want that kind of life. I would rather eat moderately. I would rather simplify my life, but I should be up and active. That is prana. Then manaha. We realize I need noble thoughts and emotions. I need to be loved. I need to love. I need to experience love and harmony with everybody whom I meet. I don't want to live in sorrow and regret, in guilt and shame and self rejection. Oh, no, no. So you go to mind, examine the mind, how the mind has its strengths but limitations, the intellect. And then there is certain happiness deep inside us, and you inquire where that happiness arises from. So this, what is known in the Prakarana Granthas, Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, Anandamaya Kosha, is taught in the Manandavalli to begin with, and a little briefly in the Braghuvalli. So a major means, a major spiritual practice to go about this inquiry into Brahma, or Ramana Maharshi would say to go into self inquiry. Ramana was very witty. When somebody asked, what about God? Should we not contemplate on God? He said, well, you inquire who you are, and automatically, when you know who you are, you will know who God is. Therefore, in a certain variation that he uses, as compared with classical Vedanta, Maharshi Ramana asks us to keep an eye on the false I, the ego. Upon mitigating that ego, the true I, which is not separate from God, which is not separate from the I in others too, will be realized. So, tapaha is a prominent means, prominent tool, prominent exercise. And therefore, we shall now take a look at some slides which talk about tapaha, especially highlighting the statement in the mouth of Father Varuna. Varuna says in the second Anuvaka, first mantra of the third Valli, therefore 3.2.1. Tapasa Brahma Vijidnasasva Tapo Brahmeti Satapo Tapyata Satapastaptva Annam Brahmeti Vyajanat. A little later, Pranam Brahmeti Vyajanat, Mano Brahmeti Vyajanat. Another paragraph. So, Braghu, upon inquiring, intensely inquiring, realizes, first he almost concludes that the body is everything. Then, going further, he realizes prana, manaha, and vijnanam brahmeti, anandam brahmeti vyajanat. And it is hinted over there that he realizes Sat and Chit, which are one only, to be Brahma. And the Braghuvalli ends with the song of a realized soul, a Jivan Mukta, a lady or a man who realizes her or his true nature, sings the joy. Ha, hu, ha, ha, hu. Ahamannam, Ahamannam, Ahamannam. There is a very interesting piece of Vedic chant towards the end of this Raghuvalli. Let's not go there. But what is tapas? Somebody may imagine tapas is standing upside down for a long time. Somebody may imagine stand in the hot sun and raise both your hands up. Urdhva bahu, it is said. Urdhva bahu, viraumi. I cry, I scream. There is a shloka beginning with those words. Urdhva bahur viraumi. Dharma leads to happiness. Adharma leads to sorrow. That shloka is in the mouth of Veda Vyasa. He says, I raise my hands and shout, scream. So everybody could hear that dharma gives happiness, adharma brings you sorrow. Yet nobody hears. So let's put aside Veda Vyasa's situation and the statement he makes. But some people think Urdhva Bahu, with hands raised, stay in hot sun, that is tapas. Some people think that don't talk to anybody one day and make a face at them. Be as serious. People fear to come near you, then you become a tapas. These are all idiotic notions about tapas. Therefore, we have titled the very first slide Tapaha, and we have taken the liberty to translate it as bring your energies together. And we shall clarify in a few minutes that this bringing energies together is to be understood carefully. It is not concentration as is mostly understood. Most people think concentration is through the act of willpower. It is through certain ambition, certain strong desire to achieve something. And they don't realize, they are not aware also. Accompanying that desire, sometimes there is a certain competitiveness. Let anything happen to others, I don't care. I must reach this goal. So this I becomes separate from others. And you want to know Brahman, where there is no such separateness from others and you, but you bite your teeth. You become so tensed up. And if some dog barks, you get angry with the dog. If a frog makes sound, and you begin to curse that frog. I am meditating and this frog is making the sound. Anthony de Mello gives that little story where a person praying morning 4 a.m. He begins to pray and a frog, you know, makes a loud sound. And he looks at the window, he looks down from the window and has a certain anger in him. Why should the frog make sound only when I start the prayer? Then he was a good person, he was a good seeker, thanks to his sattvic quality. Otherwise, suddenly he hears God, something like that. God says to him, frog is praying and you are getting disturbed by the frog's prayer. Your prayer is not disturbed so much by the frog as you are disturbed by the frog's prayer. So one of the books, best-selling books of Anthony de Mello is titled The Prayer of the Frog. And the moment this man, in his broad-mindedness, in his sattvic disposition, gets this insight, wait a minute, why should I blame the frog? The frog is offering prayers in his way. I am offering prayers in my way. Let me appreciate 4 a.m. Brahma Muhurta. The frog is praying. I am praying. So I should not have any negative thought about the frog. Like that, friends, true form of bringing energies together has no space for envy, jealousy, ambition, tension, fear of not making it in this life, or pride over I am meditating better today than yesterday. I meditate much better than all my classmates. All kinds of I and others, high and low, they have no space in truly bringing energies together. Therefore, we will explore the higher meaning of tapas. Vijitnasasva is from the jna dhatu to know. If it were just saying, please know Brahman, then the word would have been janihi. Tapasa Brahma janihi. No Brahma. So technically, Vijitnasasva is one level up. Desire to know. Seek to know. You must wish. You must have a passion to know the ultimate truth. Therefore, Natum Icha is the meaning. Janihi means is know. And Vijidnasasva, in fact, V is not necessary. Jidnasasva means seek to know. Know and seek to know. Anyway, practically it comes to the same. Seek to know Brahman. Know Brahman through tapas. So let's see why, or as we said already, why this tapas has greater significance. Shankaracharya begins his commentary on the third Valli. Valli is like a chapter of Taittiriya Upanishad saying, Atapparam Brahma Vidya Sadhanam Tapo Vaktavyam. In the first Valli, Shiksha Valli, and the second Brahmananda Valli, many topics were discussed, but there is a need now to highlight a certain spiritual practice. Without finding a better word, we are using the word practice. We will so see if we go deeper, it's not really a practice as we generally understand the word practice. It's a technique, but it is above all techniques. It's a practice, it is above all practices. It is that where these words, technique, method, practice, steps, the way, the path, all of them lose their significance, lose their validity. The higher and higher you go, the path becomes no path, method becomes no method, technique becomes no technique, and tapas slowly becomes no tapas. Tapas becomes staying alive. You don't do anything. Therefore, we say meditation in the beginning or much of the journey is something you do. But on the highest level, in meditation, you don't do anything. You stay silent, you stay alert, and meditation happens. So, what is said about meditation applies to tapas too. Shankaracharya says, Atapparam, starting his commentary on the third, Bhraguvalli, Brahma Vidya Sadhanam, a prominent means to acquiring Brahma Vidya, which is tapas, needs to be spoken. Vaktavyam, saying that he makes the way, he paves the way for us to understand all the mantras. Again, to quote one more sentence by Sri Shankaracharya, culled from the Bhashya, Adi Shankara says, nothing can be achieved in life if our energies are scattered. If our energies are scattered, like I have quoted this in other classes of mine, somebody wants to become an international standard tennis player, and every Saturday he practices 2 hours. Oh, then 24 by 6 and 22 hours of that Saturday also. So in a week, which is 24 by 7, this fellow scatters his energy in other things all other 6 days and even the 24, 22 hours of the Saturday. How can he become world class tennis player. Same way, there is a mature and wise way of spending our energies. I have to emphasize wise and mature. Otherwise, the so-called spirituality becomes another selfish, highly self-centered movement. I want to realize Brahman before all these others come anywhere near. I want to be ahead in all my life. I have been ahead. Now I have become spiritual. And in the spiritual race, I want to come first. If that is your thinking, it's very unspiritual. As you rise higher, you become more mature, you understand the subtleties of this Bhradhyatma Vidya, you begin to examine that very desire. I want to get liberated. I want to be a very wise person. What is this I? Who is this I? This I is the block, is the obstacle to true wisdom. So, without condemning I, nor justifying or feeding that I, one begins to inquire. And in gentle self awareness, the limited I melts away, dissolves. Shankaracharya says with such beautiful, simple words, Sarvesham hi niyata sadhya vishayana. In this world, there are so many vishayas, matters which are sadhya, to be achieved, which can be accomplished. Niyata, well determined, well defined. In the matter of any achievement regarding anything that is to be accomplished, tapaha eva sadhakatamam sadhanam. That sadhana, that means is the best. Sadhaka tama. It achieves the best. What is that? That is tapas. Iti hi prasiddham loke. The light that is scattered will not give much benefit. Light that is focused. As you know, on a further higher level or even higher level, laser, light amplification through stimulated emission of radiation became an acronym laser. Numerous are the applications of laser. In laser, a greater coherence between the beams of light, the waves of light, the rays of light. A certain level helps us in ordinary use of light. A certain higher coherence, higher moving together, there's a whole science about it. Light amplification through stimulated emission of radiation, laser, and wondrous things are done in technology. Likewise, that's just an analogy. Don't be carried away by the analogy. What you can achieve by bringing about certain mature observation, certain mature way of looking at things. What you can achieve through it is a million times higher than what laser has achieved. Prasiddham loke. So everywhere we need to have a certain coherence, certain coming together. Energies have to come together. We got to be passionate. Sometimes some great achievers may not express it in very precise language, but they say it all the same. Andy Grove was one of those people in the early days of Intel Corporation, took it to great heights. Intel Corporation, the manufacturers of semiconductor chips of great variety, rose to great heights, and Andy Grove was the main person for the first 20 or 30 years of Intel. And he used to say, only, uh, only paranoids succeed. His statement, which I did not like in good old days, later on I understood and I appreciate it. He used the word paranoids. You got to be paranoidal about what you are doing. That means you are so passionate. Otherwise, paranoid is considered abnormal behavior. getting too touchy about small things. Like you did some business and you got, let's say, $1 million of the profit. But after one day, you came to know that the profit could have been $1.1 million, but you got only 1 million. And you take your hands to the, oh my God, I didn't know. This is terrible. Where did this $0.1 million go? If it was possible to get $1.1 million, I'm so sad I got only 1 million, and you start crying. That will be laughed at otherwise. But Andy Grove had that kind of some perfectionist approach. He wanted his semiconductor business to reach unimaginable heights, and he did reach great heights. I believe he left Europe with some $10 in his pocket, or $5, I guess, and somehow catching some ship that was going to the United States. He landed in US, somewhere he started, but eventually, I guess, in the so-called Silicon Valley, he joined this team of the founders of Intel, and then rest is history. So let's not take those very materialistic and a little slightly different way of being passionate. But this being passionate about spiritual quest is of very, very different nature. It has lot of subtlety, sukshmatva. It is very sukshma. Therefore, one way of putting it is, it's not just operation of desire, it's not operation of will, it's not an ambitious affair. It is actually something where you see through will, where you will means willpower, where you see through ambition, where you see through desire, where you see through ambition, what you call even passion. You see through so many things your mind tries to do. See through meaning you don't take anything on its surface. You see the inner truth of it. All that glitters is not gold. All that is white is not milk. How do you know? Yeah, you will know if you go close and see. Go close, take that piece of shining metal, and there are some ways to check. Oh, this is not gold. And if something looks like milk, there are ways. Maybe put your finger into it and little bit put on the tongue. Try it a little. It may not be milk, it's turpentine or some other chemical. Then you say, oh no, it is not. Like that, in our immaturity, we think desire is the way to happiness and revenge is the way to find peace. Violence is the way to find non-violence or say harmony and so on. They are all immature, but by just calling them immature, you don't get out of them. You got to see. So tapaha is well known in the world, says Sri Shankaracharya. And we derive a little more from Shankara before that. If you check the word tapaha or tapas, whether it is h at the end or s at the end, the main word is tapa, and you reverse it, it becomes pata. Patati means one falls, and tapati means one shines, one burns, and in contrast to falling, patana, tapa is rising. Therefore, even in matters of the world, if you put your energies together, you draw all your sincerity, you look into your heart, what is it I want in life? Question yourself seriously, then you begin to rise. Taccha tapaha, says Bhashyakara. Taccha tapaha, that tapas again, bahya antakarana samadhanam. One simple definition he gives is, it is samadhana. Samadhana here, bringing together. In contrast to letting them get scattered. Sam plus a plus dha. Dha means to keep. Dha, the dhati. And a, the dhati. Sam a, the dhati. Bring it all together. Keep it at one place. So your antakarana, mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara, and bahyakarana. Bahyakarana, antakarana. Bahyakarana is eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, and the karmendriyas also. Vak, pani, pada, payu, and upastha. Those 10 are Bahyakaranas, Mana Buddhi Chitta Ahankara are Antakaranas, and both Antakarana and Bahyakaranas, all of them, Samadha, they should not be out of carelessness. They should not be allowed to go in opposite directions. Gather them. Tad Dvarakatvat, if you do so, Brahma Pratipatte. That's how you gain Brahma, you realize Brahma. And he draws from Mahabharata or somewhere where there's a definition. Manasascha indriyanancha hi aikagram paramam tapaha. Aikagram is a synonym of ekagrata. Concentration or bringing together, not in some immature fashion where there is a lot of agitation in you, but rather you notice the agitation too. You suspect everything, you question everything. Let agitation be there, but don't be carried away by it. Let there be fear, but do not ride on it. Let there be desire, do not let it throw you to some distance. Let there be certain negativities, but can you be aware of them? And as you are aware of what's happening in your mind, in your body, in your senses, everywhere, then a certain settling down happens on its own. Aikagram, that is ekagrata of the mind, of the senses, that is tapa. That is pure attention, not a form of concentration where there is suppression caused by desire, fear, etc. We suppress our desires and we go hard on some people who report to us who are our children or school children. Last month or so, a video went around in Karnataka where at a certain small town, I guess near Chitradurga, there was a boys' hostel, and I guess some 6-year-old boy was woken up early morning at 4 a.m. by one of the teachers for some fault apparently he had done previous day, and the teacher was kicking him left and right. And that boy was unable to, say 6-year-old boy, he tried to get up and run away, but this fellow kicks him again, makes him fall, and the teacher, the so-called teacher, doesn't deserve to be called a teacher. He did not know that a CCTV had been set up there in that hall. The whole thing was video recorded. By the time he came to know, he did not know what to do. He disappeared from the village, but I'm sure he got arrested in a few hours. Shame, shame upon him. That violence that he showed towards that 6-year-old boy, a boarder, maybe from a poor family, the parents must have left him there in that hostel, saying, we can't educate, let this institution give him some education, let them feed him, let them clothe him. But that boy was in for such a ill treatment. That violence is something. Another day, that same fellow would do towards himself also. You can't change the gear suddenly. If you are violent to yourself, that is when you will be violent to others. If you condemn yourself, if you judge yourself as very negative, uh, I am such a wretched person. I became such a loser. I became the laughing stock of the whole town. First, you look down at yourself, and that then agitates you so much, then you take a stick. I'm going to teach that fellow a lesson who made me what I am today. So you go after somebody else. First, there is the violence towards or against oneself, self-condemnation, rejecting oneself, labeling oneself as a failure, as not having reached somewhere. So with all that you cannot do tapas. Therefore satsanga is needed. Therefore be with people who have certain maturity. They may not be big scholars, they may not give big lectures, they may not have written big books, but in their 24 hours life, there is certain lightness, there is certain balance, there is no violence, no hatred. When they fail, it pains them a little. That's about it. They may fail 100th time, but spiritually mature people suffer a little and then say, fine. If that is what was meant to happen, that happened. Let me be again careful. Let me see what I can do tomorrow, what I can do today in a new day that has opened. So that's what I am calling maturity. In handling one's own mind, tremendous maturity is needed, and that learning is very different from learning books and becoming a scholar and memorizing things, memorizing shlokas, memorizing quotes and statements of great people. And even if you use them at the right time, all of them don't change you really. They are all good decoration for you. Inside you, it is not all that nice. Change inside. Go slow. Therefore, we say tapaha, as mentioned by the father Varuna, to advise son Bhragu, is of great importance. Gita speaks of 9 kinds of tapaha. On one hand, it says there can be tapaha or tapas, either way. So originally it is tapas shabda, and when you put it in vibhakti, it becomes tapaha tapasi tapansi. Tapaha tapasi tapansi, tapasa, tapobhyam, tapobhi, and so on. The crude word is tapas, sakaranta. But what we call pratama vibhakti ekavachana becomes tapaha. Anyway, so shariram tapaha, vangmayam tapaha, manasam tapaha. On the plane of the body, on the plane of speech, and on the plane of thoughts and emotions. And each of them, shariram, vangmayam, and manasam, can be done in a sattvic way, in a rajasic way, in tamas way, or tamasic way. Therefore, 3 into 3, there are 9 combinations. Simple mathematics, but when you do tapas in a sattvic way, then the greatest results come to you. Yes, in a way, it is like focusing light through a magnifier, through a lens. We all have done during our childhood. We have burnt some dry leaves. We have burnt a piece of paper when we could get hold of a um, convex lens. We take that convex lens and rush to the outside and take something, and there is sunshine. And even as we are watching, the paper burns, the dry leaf burns, and we are so happy. Wow. So that's a very simple example in physics. But here, when thoughts gather their energy and go deep into a certain issue, what is envy? What is sorrow? What is desire? Why do I sometimes feel low? Is it because of some factual outer reason? Or is it because of some confusion and negative values in me? So, without using all these words, if one brings mental energy to bear on the question, spectacular results come. Lastly, I should say, in life there are hundreds of forms of tapas. Gita, Upanishad, and source texts say in some ways. But I should say 100 forms of tapas are possible in daily life, where whether you are in town or in a village, whether you are in a Himalayan cave or in a busy portion of some big city, everywhere tapas are possible. Tapaha, tapas or tapasya, austerity. That's a very good translation. Basically, tapas is swimming against the current. For desire, anger, etc., make us move in a certain direction, but out of some higher spiritual understanding, we don't do what the senses demand. We don't do what the emotional mind wants. We say, wait a minute. Let me see what is good for both the other person and me. Let me see what is good in the long run. And to see what is good in the long run, in a larger perspective, you are ready to swim against the current. You move from compromise to alignment with values. Compromise. When you do go beyond the need, you eat a little, you like the food, and then you want to eat more and more. And an inner voice says, it's perfectly all right if you ate a piece and you loved it. Second piece, okay. But what's this? You are eating things like a glutton. Don't do it. Don't just say nothing will happen. Everything will happen. You'll repent later. The mind says, then you say, yeah, I stop here. So it's moving from compromise to alignment with values. The well-known poet D.V. Gundappa, called D.V.G., he says in a certain verse of his immortal work, Mankuti Manakagga, I believe it was brought out in 1942. Earlier I thought it was 1950, whatever. So in the middle of the last century, he had written this 945 verses. In one of them he says, there are four forms of tapas which everybody can practice in daily life. One is bearing with faults of others. Normally, when somebody makes a mistake, we bring the roof down. If we make the same mistake, we just keep quiet. Even if somebody points out, we say, sometimes it happens. Sorry about it. We just want to whitewash it. But somebody else makes a little mistake. That's so. So DVG says one form of tapas is have the ability to bear with and deal with it. Not that you close your eyes to faults of others, but see what is most sensible, appropriate. And whole idea is to bring that person to right path, but do it lovingly, do it considerately. Secondly, when hard times come, destiny, fate brings us unexpected hard times. Stay brave. If you stay brave in the face of hard times, that's another second type of tapas. And when success and failure come to us, in success, generally we tend to feel very proud. Ha ha, I am so much better than all these other guys. No, though we tend to go that way, stay humble. To be humble when we win. And when we fail, we see who has succeeded and we grind an axe against him, we grind our teeth against him. Again, he won. Every time he only wins. I don't like this. When will I win? In this way. The fourth one is let go of envy. Let go of envy when others win. Do not feel proud or arrogant when you win. Maintain certain balance. And he says in his punchline, these four forms of tapas are enough for what? To gain peace in life. He doesn't prescribe japa or some kind of puja or some kind of tirthayatra or some kind of Upanishadic study. Though he has studied all this to write such wonderful things. So, DVG in his wonderful work, quotes four forms of tapas and says, this kind of going by noble values of life are also forms of tapas, and these forms of tapas bring to us tremendous peace. So, with this, let me conclude this session on Know the Upanishads, 17th session. And if there are some questions, I will try to answer them. Harihi Om.